¿Cómo va, gente? ¿Todo bien? Estamos listos para transmitir con el amigo Danny Pérez o Perez, como se diría en Estados Unidos, por más que su apellido más latino que no sé. ¿Qué haces, Héctor? ¿Cómo va? ¿Todo bien? Así que acá estoy con el mate. Me puedo tirar para atrás. Mejor, así. Así estoy más relajado. ¿Qué iba a decir? La cuenta, porfa. ¿Todo bien? ¿Qué cuentan, gente? A ver si hay que mandar a nuestro amigo Ferez, Dani. Es hijo de cubanos, o sea, es medio que. Pero bueno, nació allá y. A ver. Tarán. Ahí va. Tararán. ¿Qué dice? Bien, acá, tranqui. ¿Qué te iba a decir? Acá esperando a Clara. Vamos a hablar de la película Antibirth. Vamos a hablar de cine bizarro en general, porque bueno, Antibirth cae dentro de esa categoría. Sí, es un viaje lisérgico esa película. Ya te digo, no es una película para todos. Es la película que.
Hello.
¿Qué hace? Hace al revés. I was saying that, well, your parents are Cuban, así que hablas español, pero bueno, preferís hablar en inglés.
We'll do both. Los dos.
Bueno, está bien. Sí, bueno, pero toda tu vida escuchaste español igual, desde chico.
Sí.
Bueno.
Me dijo,
Igual
Daniel
no te
Ignacio
está
Pérez,
haciendo.
Triana, a las 1, a las 2. All that shit.
I invite a friend of mine, Clara, who's a freak here. She's an actress and a freak. She loves horror and she loves also your film. So
Oh,
the
awesome.
idea is we're going to speak in English then because I know your audience maybe they don't speak Spanish. Pero podemos hacer así intercalando entre español e inglés, así para que la gente practique, so people can
Sí.
practice and learn both languages.
Yo tengo que practicar también, entonces yo prefiero.
Buenísimo. Pero con tus viejos, con tus padres, vos no hablás. With your parents, you don't speak Spanish.
They talk to me in Spanish, and then I will respond in English. And now that they're older, I try to speak to them in Spanish, and my mother is like, "No, English is not my second language. Let me speak English," but she's fucking deaf, so it's complicated. They usually yell at my mother would yell at us in Spanish.
Oh, well, yeah, well, when you curse you always curse in your mother tongue.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
yeah.
Well, I have an idea. We can talk about your film, but also we can talk about the whole bizarre, lethargic genre. Because I was telling people, in order to see to go to see a movie, but I'm telling it belongs to this kind of, bizarre. I think it's going to be a cult movie in a couple of years because with this kind of films, it's always like that. I mean, take a lot, so don't worry about it. But what can I say about your movie? Well, I mean, the premise is very simple. I mean, this girl becomes pregnant, and something terrible is growing inside her. But there is a lot of scenes very lethargic and very surreal. For example, where where there are these kind of creepy Teletubbies dancing around her. So I was saying, okay, so tell me, what were you thinking?
I mean, I wanted to. I think what you see in that movie is a lot of different influences coming together, and I wanted to make something that was like a 70s American cinema kind of hangout film with like an outsider main character, but I also wanted to make a body horror film, and I also wanted to make an experimental film that uses more like experimental excuse me, experimental like optical passages. So, and then I also just wanted to have like some humor because I like dark humor. So, I wanted it to be all those things. And I think, sometimes it comes together easier than others, but it's a little schizophrenic in that regard. I think that I'm trying to, like, with my next films, try to be a little more focused or cohesive, but it's also indicative of my personality. You know, I like lots of different things. I like to do lots of different things, and so it's a blessing and a curse.
Well, I'm working with the director here, Federico Acosta, who is also shares your same taste. For example, one of his favorite film is Necromantic, his
Oh, cool.
German film. But he watches, he starts to analyzing things and know what he does. And it's very funny how he perceives things. You should talk to him, because he's always trying to do this kind of project. And something I really appreciate about your film is it entertaining. Actually, it's fun to watch, and because also you have Natasha. That, well, I think she's the heart of the movie because her performance makes the character is so, I don't know, easygoing. I mean, you're with her. She's so chill. I mean, she's facing a very I don't know, scary situation, but she's so okay. I don't give a fuck, and that's something that she's I feel her energy, and that makes me enjoy the ride. In a way, it reminds me also to another film I recommend you. It's called Fried Barry by Ryan Kruger. He's also the type of guy you should talk to. Yeah, we know Ryan is a genius, and he will probably enjoy your film.
Yo
Do you know?
conozco, yo conozco esa película. Yo lo vi. Me gusta.
What do you think? I think there are similarities because, in a way, both are like road trip movies where the car is the character.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I've seen Fried Berry. Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, the lead is so. Is that South Africa where they filmed this?
Yeah, South African. Gary Green is the actor. Yeah, I
Yeah.
felt that the same energy. Like I know if you agree with. Would you call your film a kind of bizarrely surgic road trip movie? Because I think that's the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
idea.
I like that format, and it certainly has hallucinatory elements. And yeah, I mean, I ultimately I think I have, like a lot of people these days, a shorter attention span than I would like. So I just, as a viewer as well as a director, I wanted to make something that moved and had lots of just different parts. Like, well, if you don't like this part, it's going to go to this different part. And it's funny, I've seen like some reviews, which is just a dumb practice to do, like reading reviews or YouTube comments, but someone said this movie's so boring, nothing happens. And I was like, are you fucking stupid? Like, so much. I mean, you might not like what happens, but a lot of it goes through a lot of layers, if you will, in the movie. But it's just, I think like these other films you mentioned were inspired by things that were done a long time ago, and we're maybe just, now that we're grown up, we're so fucking damaged that our interpretation of that language is pretty mangled. I also think there's an element of, you finally get to make a movie, and you get to that point, you just want to play a lot, like, oh, I want this and this and this and this and this, and you don't really listen to people, no matter how many times you should, that tell you, maybe you should cut this or trim it down, and because you're just, you're so excited and happy to, ideally happy to be in that situation. So, but maybe that's the nature of these kind of films. Maybe if you're making like a romantic comedy or a coming of age film in a log cabin with two actors, it's easier to not get carried away. But when you're already embarking on this journey of trying to make something outside of the box, like, yeah, it's easy to go off the rails. But that's also, I like that, of all these films, I think that lends a human element to it in a weird way, despite all the style and the artifice of these crazy movies. I think I'd rather see someone fail, and by fail I mean, oh, the movie doesn't make sense, or they did it and the ending wasn't that great, because to me that's at least indicative of a human being making it and like kind of invoking or imbibing rather their energy and their spirit into it, even if it is a failing spirit. And I would argue in Antibirth, there's a couple failures and just random shit that even now I look at, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and mind you, this is all stupid stuff that audiences don't think about, as far as like, oh, that part didn't make sense, or there's this plot hole because we lost a day, or I literally had to pay overtime for the monster. Like, there would be no monster shots in that movie in Antibirth if I hadn't agreed to on set sign and legally obligate myself to pay the overtime for this union crew. The producers were just hated me and were literally like, well, we're gonna go into overtime. And I was like, we haven't even shot this crazy fucking prosthetic that we paid a lot of money for. It's the climax of the film. And so I had to sign, I think it was like $3,000 I ended up having to cover just to like so I could shoot the fucking monster. Anyway, but so that's an example of, besides just some dirty background laundry, uh,
Mm.
yeah, just how practical things like the shoot and the timing can really affect the ultimate storytelling and the package. And you know, it's you have to roll with it. It's a weird medium, right? Filmmaking and all these moving
Mm.
parts. So you learn from it, but in the moment when you're doing it and you're finally on set, it can be a whirlwind and just very intense experience. If I was more of a, you know, macho man like Michael Bay, I would not say, no, I didn't cry when I was making the movie. He's like, fuck yeah, I cried. There were like multiple nights I was like, oh my God. Like it was hard, you know. It's but I'm lucky that I got to have the experience, and you know, it'll just make the next one easier or less
Mm.
tumultuous.
No, actually, some of the problem with films nowadays is that the people that do the publicity, the branding, they are people that they don't understand anything about nothing. They are just old people, and they don't know how to target the films. Because if I always tell when I'm talking about your film, I always say, okay, think about Fry Barry, Bad Boy Bobby, think bizarre, and I start, naming all these films and say people, oh, it's that kind of movie. So people
Yeah,
that love that kind of movie is going to watch it, and there's a lot of people that will enjoy it.
I
So that's the problem nowadays. I mean, that's why directors have to be more in contact with their audience, because something I was talking yesterday with other director, Luke Boyce, and I was saying the same. I mean, we are doing this live also because I know a lot of audience here. I know them, and they love this kind of films, and maybe you will surprise how many people will enjoy your film. Of course, you will say, yeah, there was a lot of production problems, yes, but there's also a lot of interesting stuff there, and the pacing is good, the visuals are amazing, the actors are so great. I like the commitment of the actress also because they are in a surreal movie, but they really, you can tell they put everything there,
yeah.
Natasha. And that's something you appreciate in an actress. I mean,
No, she was amazing to work with, and I have to give her credit. Some of the best or funniest lines in the movie she came up with and improv, and I just kept them. But yeah, it was I like that weird duality of, you know, what is typically a B movie or a cult film, but giving it these kind of grounded but gritty performances. Like they're not very campy and heightened. Like some of the language is. Like I remember there was one line where Chloe had to say, she's a spaced out mama. And she kind of rolled her eyes, like she didn't like the line. But I was like, no, no, it's cool. Like it'll be cool if you just kind of deliver it naturally, or just, you know, like that's your slang, right? And that comes from, I like language like that, just from that era of like the '60s and '70s, and kind of like those films like Eating Raoul with like Paul Bartel. I don't know if you're familiar, but just like really like cheesy, like dumb wordplay. That's always a little like adolescent and a little sexual. Not that Spaced Out Mama is an example of that. Anyway, to get back to my point is, I tried to do, I wanted to have these kind of gritty natural performance, like something like that Dennis Hopper film Over the Edge, where we had this cool tomboy in a jean jacket just kind of mouthing off to old timers and bars and stuff. But to combine that approach in a very stylized, surreal environment, I think is I think it's, I like it. I think it's I enjoy it, but I think it's off-putting to some people as far as just combining tones, right? Like I like the idea of a normal lady in a tracksuit walking through a dreamscape, for lack of a better word. You know, when you kind of combine these two different things, it becomes just more abrasive and strange. And I'd prefer to find the kind of, as far as horror films and the genre, I think it's more, for me, I'm more interested in finding creepiness out of that approach than like jump scares or gore and
yeah,
stuff. for lack of a better word, like make somebody in pink pajamas in the daytime. How do you make that scary? You know, like it's easy to make a guy in a mask and a knife in the in the nighttime in the shadows, and put a boom 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 kind of score on it. Yeah, you make that's done. You got it covered.
Boom.
Yeah, but and then that's fun. I watch those movies too, but just for for my own creative taste and what turns me on. Yeah, I liked, and but and sometimes it works better than others, but at the very least, it's a chance I like to take. Unfortunately, the medium is so expensive that if you take these chances with other people's money, it can go wrong.
That's a thing very interesting about practical effects, because when you have a film that, okay, is bizarre, it has this dark humor, it's this comedy horror, and it has a lot of practical effects, it has an appeal to the audience. The other day I was revisiting Brian Shusna Faust, for Love for the Damned. It's Andrew Divoff, and Andrew Divoff is there, also Jeffrey Combs, and I find it entertaining. And it's so cheesy. The actor, they are overreacting all the time, but these are good actors, and they are overacting on purpose, but they're doing so well that it ends up being funny. So I say, okay, I like this film because it doesn't take very serious itself, but at the same time, that's the purpose. And I mean, it's entertaining. And I think that's something to come up with that idea and to make a film that is bizarre or whatever or experimental, but make it entertaining. It's very difficult. And I think you have accomplished that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I just consider myself a movie lover first and foremost too. So I try to approach these things like I want to make something that I would want to see, that I would really get a kick out of seeing. And so that's always been kind of my approach. But yeah, it's hard. I think anytime in my experience here in Los Angeles, as far as trying to do the more traditional approach of developing things with production companies, anytime you introduce camp into the language or the tone, they fucking hate that. And like it's really strange because it's almost so you might think, oh, the alternative is if they don't like camp, then they like everything very like serious and dramatic and gritty and grounded. But then you see 2/3 of the shit they put out and it's so fluffy and so saccharine and so artificial. You're like, why not at least turn the style up a couple degrees and like have fun with the language? I mean, mind you, this does exist. It's just not to my taste, so to speak. But yeah, as far as like the practical effects, I was really lucky. The team I got to work with in Canada were really great, and they gave me a ton of input into all that stuff. And again, just as a fan, like I love all those mid 80s like Larry Cohen movies like The Stuff and Brain Damage with some of it looks totally shitty, but it's just it's a fun visual because there's just a way that a practical versus digital effect catches the light and interacts with the scene. Even the best CG, and mind you, I think there's amazing CG out there and some things that it's better suited for as far as like fluid movements and stuff that's more like languid. And I was working on a project that I ended up not getting, but it was they wanted tentacles coming out of this woman, but they were adamant that it be practical effects, to kind of tip their hat to the genre audience, saying, see, we did this with practical effects. And it was a rare moment where I actually was advocating or pushing. It's like, no, you need to do that digitally because tentacles, like coming out of a body, kind of an anime style, that's gonna, to me, you'll get better motion out of a digital. Anyway, that's we could talk about that effects all day, and but yeah, that was.
I love to talk about the effects because practical effects nowadays they still work. I mean, and I prefer it than CGI. I mean, of course, it's good CGI, but there is now a lot, most of mainstream films depend on I mean, they rely a lot in CG effects that, I mean, for me, they don't look realistic. And when I see a practical effect, like the final scene of your film, for example, it's amazing because in a way it's a craft, the design of the creature. Not for nothing, the guy who invented Alien was an amazing artist. I'm talking about Giger, right? He was an amazing concept artist, and they became. I mean, well, we talk also with Phil Tippett that create all these creatures for the films, and this artwork, it's fascinating, and it's fascinating to see in action in the story, and that's not going to change, I think. Well, maybe someday, but not maybe
I
next
mean,
year.
it's I think there's definitely still people carrying on a big budget level, like Hollywood level. There's certainly people that do it well or carrying on the mantle. Like that movie Slither that James Gunn made, a long time, about 10, 15 years ago at this point. But that to me is an amazing example of practical with digital being combined really well. That show, have you seen this show on Amazon, The Boys, like the superhero?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually like it. It's a little heavy-handed, but I do think that show has the best digital gore out there. Like some of the effects they do are just like pretty amazing. And it's pretty wild that on a what is the equivalent of like a major network, a streamer like Amazon, they do some of the stuff they do. So I think there's room for or there's still obviously an audience for it. I watched that movie. Have you seen The Sadness?
Yes, yes, of course, yes.
Boy,
Brutal.
yeah, it's funny. I watched it, and to the filmmaker's credit, for the first time in a long time that night, I was home alone, and I was very uncomfortable and not excited to be home. But I think between that and Gaspar Noé's Climax,
Oh,
that might be the end of my time with films like that. Like I appreciate it, and some of it was good, but yeah, there was a time maybe 15 years ago where I would have eaten up such cinema, and this is not a knock to those filmmakers because it's a genre and there's an audience for it. And I mean, I watched it because okay, let me see the most fucked up zombie movie that's out there. Okay, let's watch it. And I watched it, and it made me realize, ooh, yeah, I don't know if that's the kind of film or just storytelling that I'm into. And the visuals are certainly, excuse me, compelling. But yeah, I need a little more humor and a little more color in my violence. But yeah, it was intense. Just speaking of practical effects, there's a lot in that film.
yeah, man. Well, the thing about The Sadness, I think it has one of the best 30 minutes. I mean, the calm before the storm never felt so scary,
No, I
right? I
agree.
mean,
And that first
also
scene is amazing in the cafe when the woman. I mean, that scene's amazing. Even the subway scene is amazing. But
yeah.
after that, I was just like, ugh.
Yeah. After that, it returned to the cliches of the zombie genre, and again, but something I appreciate about the film is the first 30 minutes. All
Yeah,
this calm before the storm, this atmosphere of weirdness. I mean, something terrible is going to happen. I mean, that thing, and the metro scene, the subway
yeah,
scene. I mean, because there's always things you can take of a film, right? A lot of people talk about the sadness, but again, take the first 30 minutes, and you can. I mean, then you have to correct the rest of the movie. But again,
yeah,
it's difficult to innovate, right? Because to innovate, you need time to sit down in your office and write something. And I appreciate when they take time, because the problem nowadays, it's streamings are producing shows every day, like 10 shows per day. So it's come on, quickly. I need the second season, the first season, and creativity doesn't work that way. I mean, to
yeah,
produce something, you need time, right? To sit
yeah.
down, come up with the good ideas, and again, I mean, honestly, for me, I appreciate with that they do that. Another thing, something you do in your film that also you use low life characters. I don't know if that's the term, but that's also very interesting because I don't know in the United States, but here in Argentina to do that, it's I know in Argentina, I mean, it's not so how you say it doesn't generate an impact, but maybe in the US to show these characters is uncomfortable for the audience because it's what we're talking about the other day. I mean, you are admitting the existence of poverty, and this time. And I know in the US, they don't like to have this conversation about the social problems. So I'm guessing that was an issue to sell and to produce the movie, right?
Yes and no. I mean, it just goes to show you how these things are financed. As far as where we got the money and how, nobody looked at the fucking script. They were just like, oh, Natasha Lyonne, Chloe Sevigny, this dude's been to Sundance before. Yeah, sure. Like, they never, like, so in a way, I was really lucky. Like, no one really looked at the shit that I was putting into the movie, which is generally not the case. Like, if you do a Netflix show or a bigger budget movie, they're going to be going through that script and like combing, and looking for things to recast and so forth. But what's funny is my mother still hasn't seen the movie. And my father, his only review, I shit you not, this thing took me like fucking 5 years to make, was a total challenge. His only review was, and I'm going to do it in his accent, but he was like, Danny, I really hope you don't know people like this in your real life. That's all he said. I was like, no. Oh, the colors were pretty. Oh, wow, there was a lot of music. Wow, I know you worked real hard, son. It was just like, where the fuck did you find these people? But, I think that's just a population that interests me as far as some of the, the people that you want to tell stories about. And, I try to not have it veer into what some people like to call poverty porn, where you're kind of just like, oh, look how weird these, poor and depraved people are. But, especially living in a place like Los Angeles, I mean, every day I see like subhuman conditions and people like running, I'll go to the gas station and a guy's like running out, having stolen a 6-pack, and then when I'm leaving, he's literally on the traffic island, like shitting in the middle of the street at 8 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And this is a very typical thing you see in a major city like Los Angeles. And I'm digressing and rambling now, but I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot of artifice that we live with all over the world as a result of, just trying to maintain people in the machine of like, oh, well, you need to make money, and at the very least, if you're not making money, you need to be a cog in the machine that enables other people to make money, and just hold on to that dream that you're gonna make more money one day. And lest I sound like a socialist that my Cuban family would fucking disown, I'm just saying that a lot of people get ground up in the system and by society, whether that's a religious organization or just an economic situation. And that was something that I kind of wanted to show in the movie. And, without giving a spoiler as far as what the final conspiracy is the idea that even on a small level of like an alien experience or a biological experiment, like, which is what kind of happens in the film, which I guess is a spoiler, but you can see that coming a fucking mile away. That's not the thing to spoil. The ending is the fun part. But my point being is there's always people at the very bottom of a situation, and then it works its way up to the rest of society, and the people that are on the top are protected from the people on the bottom. And I'm more interested in the people around here and the strange situations that they encounter. And so I think was my motivation for the kind of characters I wanted to write.
Yeah, and that's something interesting that I appreciate about genre horror, sci-fi films, especially horror, because I mean it's not your film is not about this the people that live in this condition. It's the story is about the girl who gets pregnant and she has something inside wherever. But you are showing in the background something. You are doing the right thing. First, you tell a story through genre that it's appealing because it's fun to see fucked up situations or fantasy. But at the same time, people, a lot of people that watch the film, they say, "Oh my God!" But there are people like that in the U.S. because maybe from an outsider point of view, people say, "Okay, there is no poverty in the U.S." I know there is because I have a lot of friends there, and I know the economic situation is really bad, and it's coming like this for over 20 years. Just like the rest of the world. Well, Argentina, we are like this. We have been like this for 50 years probably. But the thing is, you use the genre to put this situation. So after you see a film, the people say, "Wow, I mean, what a fucked up situation. Is this real?" And of course, everyone knows it's real because it's impossible to ignore reality. I mean, you
Yeah.
can just walk on the street and say, okay, I'm not watching this, I'm not watching this. But that's something very smart to do, because to do a realistic film about poverty, I mean, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for real life, I have reality.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you use this genre, you put this combination of surreal elements, visuals. So again, I mean, maybe there were production problems or whatever, but it's a good film inside, between inside the genre, as I would say.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, thank you again for your kind words and support. But yeah, I think also the pregnancy angle was something that I wasn't trying to do something necessarily for shock value, but to me that's kind of a sacred cow in society, right? Pregnancy and the woman when she's fertile, when she's carrying, people are like, oh, you're glowing, oh, you look so beautiful. And the reality is, there's a lot of garbage parents out there making fucking garbage kids that grow up into garbage people. And you'll see some of these people like, dragging their kids around the streets or hitting them. Not that this is what I wanted that character to be, but I wanted to kind of, in a comedic, albeit dark way, kind of have our main character be that. Like, what's the most I can do, like, to have a female character? How do I subvert that archetype of like the glowing pregnant woman? And a lot of that came
Yeah.
from personal reasons too. I was in my mid-30s, I wasn't having kids, and I kind of resented a lot of my peers kind of caving into the whole just like, oh, I'm gonna buy a house and have kids, which is fine. But then what happens is the more they fucking get kids and move out of the cities, they get more and more conservative and turn into fucking Republicans and start saying, oh, well, now maybe the shit, I resent that stuff.
Mm.
So that was a personal angle for that character. There's anyway. So yeah, there's a little behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, but and again, you should talk more with fans that with critics. I know critics were very hard with the movie, but as I told everyone, fuck the critics. They don't know shit about anything,
I mean,
and they only.
I got literally, I mean, I know we talked about this earlier, but people here might be interested to know. I got literally one of the worst fucking reviews in the New York Times. And I had flown out to New York for the screening. And after the screening, which was bad, like it was not a good, premiere in New York type situation, the distributors at IFC were kind of mumbling to themselves. I was like, oh, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, oh, the review in the New York Times. And I was like, oh, can I see it? And they're like, you don't want to see it. I was like, oh, well, now I want to see it. And the reviewer literally premised my film with like a physical trauma that he went through. Like he was like, he opened the review by saying, one day I'll be at a party and I'll meet somebody who's gone through this shared trauma, and it'll be watching this terrible movie, yada, yada, yada. And I won't lie, I'm not so tough and cool that it did not really bum me out and depress me over that trip. Now I can laugh about it. And I also think, man, you're a fucking square, this fucking review, like a fucking nerd, because my movie's not that like crazy. Like a film like The Sadness or a Gaspar Noé film, those are like fucking hard to watch and challenging. My film's just fucking colorful and weird and has like some pretty nonsense structure to it. So the fact that this guy was like, oh my god, it's just like, man, you don't really see that much, do you? So I can laugh about it now, but yeah, like you said, these fucking distributors and reviewers, there's a lot of just straight up nerds, for lack of a better word, as far as
I call it snobs because they are not nerds. I mean, as someone who's nerd would have seen a lot of the films you mentioned. This guy, like snobs, they watch these films in Cannes where there's a lot of rich people smelling other people's farts, and it's always like that. It works like that. So
yeah.
again, and you have the problem with the directors, indie directors that work this kind of genre here in Argentina is also the same. Is they are not connected with their audience, and they think nobody will like their products, and there's millions of people that like their products. So that's why we are doing this live, so this kind of audience can connect with you.
It's great that you're doing this, because I can't speak for other directors, but I'm not so young, but I'm not very adept at social media, and self-promotion is certainly not my strong suit. So it's very helpful for someone like you to kind of, do a series like this and get the word out there. And, I'm happy to do it, and certainly not shy about interacting with people that reach out to me online. But yeah, it's just not, I don't know. I know, and mind you, some people are better at it than others, the art of self-promotion and et cetera, et cetera.
No,
But
yeah.
yeah,
The problem also is the distribution companies and publicity. The advertising companies. They don't know shit. I mean, because they don't know the product. And
yeah,
again, there are some companies that they are smart and they say, okay, this movie for this audience, or we're going to sell it like this, and it's going to work. But talking with a lot of sale companies and distribution company, they don't know shit. They have this narrow-minded scenario where they say, okay, this country likes this, that like this. It's like a static. And if you work in advertising, it's not, or in a sell, say if you sell things, you never have to have this. You must not have this framework. The idea is, how do I sell this? I mean, how do I come up with idea? Because that's the work of advertising, to create, the necessity, the need, or create, to sell that. But the problem is, these companies, they don't sell. They just say, okay, people like this, we're going to find this will work, this won't work. No. It's not what, it's how you sell this thing. So again, I have come up with a lot of people that are trying to, because again, if you show your this kind of films, or any kind of films different from the mainstream to the general audience, a lot of people will say, wow, why didn't heard about this film before? Well, you know why? Because the assholes, they don't promote it. Yeah, so again, and I'm making a point here, because a lot of films have promote. People tell me, "Wow, I mean, I didn't know this exists. Thank you for sending me this this film." No. Thank the director, because if you don't thank him, he's going to commit suicide. Like I said. So, yeah, well, you have
there's
to talk with some.
a lot of suicidal thoughts that go into making work like this, for sure. I understand them. Yeah, it just seems like a lot of times, and it's with film distribution, and I see this a lot in the music world as well. People are just really not, meaning the distributors are really content just doing the bare minimum. Like, they'll get a poster made,
Yeah.
maybe they'll do a Facebook page, they'll book one theater in the middle of nowhere just so it looks like it's in theaters now when it's rentable on the streamers, and that's it. And it's weird and counterintuitive because we live in this time with the internet, and there's so many ways to think outside the box,
Yeah.
so to speak, as far as viral
Yeah.
campaigns or social media campaigns, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't really understand. I don't really have a lot of sympathy for either the music world or the film world when people complain about diminishing profits, or
Yeah.
I'm just like, that's not.
These guys, they don't know shit. The thing is that they have a business plan. It's this sells, so I'm going to sell this, and the rest I don't care. Because you can do money out of films, horror films, bizarre films, if you reach the audience, if you generate the audience. I mean, it's difficult to do it in the short term, but in the medium term or long term, it can be very profitable. But the problem with this, I mean, I study economics. I work in this in the finance area, and I know if you take a long term vision, you can profit for all these films, because there's a market for this film, and there's an audience, and I have proved this with many times. So again, it's a matter of laziness of these guys, that they don't want to. They say, okay, I can make money like this, and it's over.
The thing that I understand is, they'll always tell you, oh, those kind of films don't make money. But no fucking films make money.
Well,
The normal movies, the romantic comedies, the Sundance dramas with C-list indie celebrities, those don't make any fucking money either. So,
no.
like, why not at least make something like
Actually,
build
no, it's all the way around. These kind of films generate money. I have Now I know people now. I'm in contact with people with distribution companies that work specifically in this kind of genre, and they're making money. So I mean, the films, the art films of Sundance, they don't make money because they are made by rich people that they don't care making money, and that's the problem. A lot of directors, they act like they are rich, but because they are taught in the universities that you have to do this and this and this, but that only applies for the rich directors who do these boring films from Sundance and Cannes, and that's the truth. So they have to re-educated and say, no, you have to be more like a businessman, like saying, okay, no, how can I sell this? Where is the audience?
That's
the key.
You touched on something there that a lot of people don't realize or don't pick up on, that I think is important for younger people to know. I can't claim to be super poor, but I make very little money. And the reality, as far as like making it in this industry, regardless if it's Los Angeles, Argentina, because again, these projects don't make money the same way albums from musicians don't make money. You basically have to be independently wealthy or have a stream of income, passive income, as they say, like, oh, I rent a house or fucking whatever, to get through the periods in between projects. Because again, let's say you're lucky enough to get a $1 million indie film as a director, right? You'll probably out of that budget make, like, let's say you're lucky, maybe $40,000, right? Like maybe that film that took you 2 to 5 years to get off the ground. Okay, you just made $40,000 for and mind you, to 20-year-old Danny, I'd be like, whoa, no way, $40,000, that's fucking amazing. But now, the same way I would go on tour with friends in my 20s, and I would make $900 and be like, cool, I don't have to work for 6 weeks. Like, I literally, I could live off of that. My point being, to go to what you're saying about, being a rich kids club, so to speak, that's why they're so long in between projects for filmmakers that make this kind of work.
Well, that's why the filmmaker has to apply a different approach.
Yeah.
Because they are, again, there's films here in Argentina that if I watch them, you say, wow, how much did this cost? And I will tell them $10,000. And now, come on. And they make it in 20 days, 10 days. So there's a way of doing good things differently, but you have to, and if you want to make money of that, you also can do it. Contact these distribution companies and work with partners abroad. The problem is you have to change your mindset.
Yeah, no, like you're never going to make, there's no point. And even that mark has lowered. Like a couple of years ago, it used to be like, okay, write something in the $500,000 to $1 million range. And now it's like, okay, write something in the $200,000 to $300,000 range. Mind you, if you gave me $30,000, I'll make something out of it, and I'll travel the world with it and fucking charge for tickets at the door. Maybe that's the better model, because at this point, even if it's like a well cast, like commercial movie, the distributors, or rather the streamers, don't pay full cost for these films. Like,
what you have to do, it's also it's work your audience, because if you work your audience, you have a bargain chip. You can pressure.
I have to say something I noticed, and this is I'd be curious what you think or what you've seen in this regard. When I had a more experimental project 10 years ago, I got to go to a lot of places, film festivals, really fun opportunities. They'll pay for your ticket and put you up, and that was a wonderful experience. And I would argue one of the positives, because you don't make money, so at least you get to travel and meet people and so forth. Then when I did Antibirth, same festivals, and maybe this is me personally, but they no more. Festivals stopped flying people out. They stopped putting people up because they're like, no, we'll just show your film. And I don't know why the budgets are getting smaller and smaller while the world gets more expensive.
It's festivals. It's that now there's a lot of festivals, and that's the thing about the budget. And big festivals are, for they have their agenda, so you have to do these boring art films. As I tell my friends that are directors, big festivals if you go there, you are going to get, the idea of going there is to get laid, basically. I mean, that's the yeah. I mean, that's the true. I mean, because you have to start thinking like I mean like the businessman. You have to start connecting with that world and finding a new business model. Because I've been doing that, talking with a lot of horror fans who also they have studied not filmmaking because. And they say, okay, I got this filmmaking that can do this amazing film with this money. I'll say, okay, oh, let's go to Netflix. No, well, the problem is the guy who selects movie in Netflix, he's an asshole. Well, here in Latin America, they are all friends from the mainstream producers in Argentina, Mexico, so they don't accept horror films. So, for example, like this film Pussycat, they have to contact a Canadian distributor and say, "Oh, your film is so good," and the director say, "Oh, that's so great," because Netflix didn't want it, but they don't want it because they think people won't like it. They won't take it because they only accept films from their friends producers. That's the thing. And I think in the States happened the same thing. I mean, again, it's not about the audience won't like it. It's like it operates, I mean, like a mafia in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, people have to realize that it's not a problem because if you want to do business, there's always going to be an audience. And a film like, for example, Pussycat, it must be, it's amazing. People going to love it. I watch it on the here on the screen in the festival here in the horror festival, and it's amazing, and people are loving it. And I say, why Netflix didn't bought it? Because they're assholes, they're stupid, and they actually say, no, in Latin America they only like soap operas. What the fuck are you talking about? I know millions of people that would love this film, but they don't think they're all stupid people that they know one business model where there is million of business model. That's the key. I mean, come on. I mean, who teach you that? I mean, that's the basic things you have to know. But well, I mean,
let's talk about something funner. This is bleak and depressing.
yeah. I mean,
the financing of films is not a fun reality.
Yeah, I know. No, but I can help. I mean, I can help you to promote your film, and I mean, if you do something, please let me know.
No, I appreciate. I'm teasing. I appreciate your perspective, and certainly, I think it's the reality is.
So I'm a horror fan, but also I study economics, so I have this side of me.
It's brilliant. No, it's super helpful. My business sense is fucking awful. Like it's I'm consistently taking a bath in financial losses, but I'm just always like, oh, put it in front of the camera, put it in front of the camera. Don't worry about it later, and then later is not so fun.
Mentioned a guy called Brian Schultz. Do you know him?
Ryan Schultz.
Yusna. He's the guy from that did Beyond Reanimator, False Love from the Dam. I don't know what's the pronunciation. Do you know him?
I mean, I know the film Beyond Reanimator. Yeah.
I know.
I just
No, because recently I was watching the films. He did the original Reanimator. He was the script writer, and then he started doing films. And he do these, horror comedies, low budget B movies that I mean I really enjoy. I was telling you last night I was watching this movie called Faust, Love for the Dam, with Divoff and Jeffrey Combs. And again, it's so low budget, but it's funny because I mean I don't know if you like this kind of genre.
I do.
Movie.
Yeah, I just watched Boxer's Omen a couple. I'd seen it before. Are you familiar with this Star Brothers film? And some of the effects in it are amazing and beautiful, and some are like super shitty, like real like puppets and sock puppets and so forth. But yeah, it's such an interesting just visual, especially when you see it and like it was shot on film, but then processed on some like really low quality video. Like it just takes on a different quality visually. But yeah, I'm a fan of, and basically, I mean, there was definitely a time where that was my main focus as far as films that I was looking for, as far as, I just want to see practical effects and as much slime and goo as possible. And I had the chance to meet with, oddly enough, this guy, I'm embarrassed to say, I think it's David Anderson. He's, if I had my phone on me, I'd look it up. The woman from the Nightmare on Elm Street that plays the main girl, the brown-haired girl. Oh my gosh. long story short, he was a prosthetic guy here in LA. And when we were first trying to get Antibirth financed, he was going to do the prosthetics. Like Natasha hooked him up. She had worked with him. And he was like a big deal, like Hollywood. He did Serpent in the Rainbow and all kinds of like crazy films. And right when we were about to like get the money together, he had to bow out because he was like, oh, I got a job. It's a Star Wars thing. I have to take it. And I was like, oh, but when is it going to be over? Like, you know, maybe we can do it after you're done with the Star Wars thing. And he basically said, it's never going to be over. Like, this is the rest of my life. And I was like, oh, and he was referring to, this was right when the new movies started coming out and all the TV shows. So I guess they just had him on lockdown. Anyway, but I was lucky to work with the people that I got in Canada. But at one point, do you know the guy that did Gabe Bartalos? He did a film called Saint Bernard, and I forget what the name of his first one.
Yeah,
he did a lot of Larry Cohen's prosthetics, and he did like Belial and Basket Case.
yeah. Basket Case.
Yeah, I love Basket Case. But so he also did the stuff for Matthew Barney, really oddly enough, like really like all of Matthew Barney's prosthetics he did. So that I got to go to his studio once or twice out here in LA just to kind of pick his brain about some stuff I was working on. And yeah, it's so fun to see like those shops and all the stuff they have going on. That is a good thing about LA, I'll say. There's still, you know, you still have access to people like that or resources like that. And oftentimes if you don't have the budget, they're, you know, as long as you're a nice person or, you know, affable about it, people are open to working on your projects for lower rates as long as, you know, you're on a reasonable schedule.
I mean, I want to ask you a question. Would you do a film in Latin America, in Argentina, for example?
Yeah.
I mean, you speak Spanish.
Yeah, 100%. Let's do it. Let's do it in fucking June. This summer was awesome.
Produce you some. I don't know. Have you watched some horror films from Argentina or Latin America? Because there are a lot of crazy people like us doing amazing things. And I mean, sometimes the key is, you know, introducing people and something come up. I'm telling you, they're amazing.
I would love that, and I think also just the genre, you know, would benefit a lot from being in a terrain like Argentina or other places, as far as, you know, you take it out of the traditional environment, right? A log cabin or a gritty New York style city. No, put it on like a weird beach town in Argentina, or do it on like a cobblestone street and then have something surreal and fantastic happen. And again, that's that duality, right? You have, it's not a creepy castle in Transylvania, but it's a weird hostel where annoying backpackers are trying to gentrify.
Yeah, there's a lot of creepy places around here. But yeah. Have you watched the movie Terrified? It has
no
Terrified.
No.
Aterrados, an Argentinian film that was very popular outside Argentina, and now it's amazing. You should meet the director. He's a very cool guy. Also Pussycat, the new film from Pablo Perez. I mean, this is a guy you should work with. I mean, you are going to have a lot of time. I will introduce you to them.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I'm just at this point in my life, I'm just looking for kindred spirits, and like
No, you have to meet this guy. You are going to have a lot of fun with Pablo, and really you must watch their films, and then you have to guess the budget. If we are talking about nothing, and you cannot believe what they are doing. So
is it easier to get locations in Buenos Aires, as far as, you know, you have
well, I mean, if you go outside the city, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
So, and even in the city, I mean, again, if it is an indie film, nobody gives a shit. I mean, again, you have to do an indie film. Indie film means you are not going to tell anyone you're doing a film, because if you let the government, they're going to start putting taxes and, you know, everything. But if you do it like that and then you sell it outside, nobody gives a shit. And again, I have friends that are doing films outside Buenos Aires, and it's a big country, so you can do whatever you want, basically.
Yeah,
and again,
I would love that. Yeah, you know, I have a lot of what I do for work outside, you know, just to pay the bills, is a lot of like motion graphics and After Effects and stuff like concert visual. So I'm always trying to incorporate that into the visual language. of a genre
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
So I think that's, that would be really fun to kind of mix that visual approach with like an Argentinian landscape. I think it would be really unique, and it'd be a nice little break from California. That's the problem with, I mean, lots of problems with Los Angeles, lots of good things, but that's one thing. People are so crazy here with locations. They charge you so much fucking because it's Hollywood. So they think, oh, I can get some money. But like I would
Yeah,
work commercials as a crew person and see neighbors getting into fights because the one neighbor didn't give them, oh, you didn't tell me this commercial was shooting. I could have asked for more money if I knew the trucks were going to park on my street, and et cetera, et
yeah.
cetera. And they're
Well,
people are just
here depends. There is a system, there is a website where you can find location, but I never, I never, advise doing that. I'm a very social person, as you can tell, and I talk with everyone. So, for example, the other day I went to the doctor, and I was seeing the office and say, we're doing this project, this anthology. Can we use your office? Okay, let me think. I don't know, and we start talking. So. I am, and again, I met this guy who has a lot of properties. He has an abandoned factory. I said, "Wow, that would be great to film." Oh, yeah, yeah, you can use it wherever you want. And well, we always use we use the guy and we offer him a cameo or whatever. So it's like that. If you are, social enough, you can get
yeah.
wherever you want.
I think that's something that's kind of a fun part of independent filmmaking or is making art on no budget is this kind of scavenger hunt process where you're like, okay, who do I know that owns a bar or has a pool that I can shoot this underwater scene? Okay, that means I have to come back in a month with a basket of grapefruit because I told them that I'll bring the grapefruit, and it becomes
Yeah,
harder, it's exhausting, but you also form much better relationships with people, I think. Like,
yes.
because when you're just paying people and it's just a business transaction, people don't give a shit. They're like, hey, get in, get out, whatever. But
Yeah,
like I said, I don't make a lot of money, but something that I'm very wealthy or grateful for is I have a lot of social resources. I have a lot of good friends that will lend me their time, that will work on my shoots, or I have, I can borrow a projector or a camera and so forth. And that comes from years of this approach, right? Of just being like, okay, listen, I'm trying
yeah.
to do thing, and the right people will be sympathetic to this approach and want to support you. And you don't get that if you're just buried in permits
Yeah.
and paint.
Something something I notice about the American culture. I mean, and maybe you are like this because your parents are Cuban and you have this. Is in Latin America, people are more social. I mean, and for example, we are a hangout culture in Latin
Yeah,
America, and I think that's very important. To let's get a drink. I don't know, some mate, as we say here, or a beer and whatever, to talk about films. Let's watch these B movies. Let's watch Antibirth, and that's something in big cities in the US. It doesn't. In LA, for example, in New York, not so much apparently, but in LA, it's everything is business, and that's a
yeah,
very old approach because okay, yes, you have to be efficient, but if you think in the long term, the more people you know, the more bond you have with people. I mean, that's worth more than money if you know how to approach it.
yeah.
So
No, I agree, and it's hard. It's easy to forget sometimes, but yeah, I think that is money. Money just makes everything toxic, and it's a necessary evil. I'm not so naive to think that we don't need some kind of currency or whatever, but yeah, it definitely, especially, I think the reason film just attracts so much of that is because it is so expensive, right? So anything where the stakes financially are that high is going to attract the wrong people or the wrong intentions.
yeah,
You just have to navigate it, but like yourself and like myself, and I'm sure mutual friends that we'll make in the future, there are people that are very level-headed and have pure
hmm.
hearts about it and a pure perspective, and that's who you have to seek out.
Actually, you can have both. You can make money and a lot of friends. I mean,
Yeah,
and that's I'm in a film in the film industry where you need. I have this advice from a director I admire a lot, and he's a genius, and he's a good friend, Alex Cox. He did a movie called Walker, Repo Man, in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
Alex said in one interview, he's living there in, I think it's in Oregon right now. I'm always sending him alfajores. That's traditional food. He loves that. And he told me the filmmaking, it's a long road. You are going to need a lot of friends. And
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's not. It's unlike a lot of other mediums because you need, even on a macro budget level, even these movies that you hear, oh, they made it for $10,000. There were still 5 people on set. There was maybe only 3, but that's 3 people that you have to depend on. You have to know they're going to show up on time. You have to know they're going to do good at their job, etc., etc. So it can be hard to find people like that. And I've been really lucky. I always get this experience when I do one of my music videos or one of my films. I'll get people that are union production people, and they get paid way more than they would ever get paid by me, but they enjoy working with me because they always know they're going to see something weird. They always know that, oh, well, it's a Danny project. I'm going to see something really cool, and it's going to be fun to be in the room with this weird character and this makeup and so forth. And I don't say that to toot my own horn or to brag, but it's, that's, again, to go back to this idea of a social currency or a spiritual currency. It's like, yeah, it's like, I can't pay you, but I'm going to treat you nice. I'm going to give you an 8-hour day instead of a 12-hour day. And there's going to be music playing on set, and it's going to be a lot more relaxed than like a Netflix show on a union stage, yada, yada. So, it's you have to, there are, pros and cons to every approach.
Well, I hope we can help you to do your next project. That's the whole idea of this. And
Yeah.
not only that people know you better, but only you have start contacting different people around the world, because that makes easier to do a project. We are doing an animation project narrated by in English. So also, if you can, we have a lot of stories, and they are being narrated by American actors. We are working on, and they're very surreal, and we are doing After Effects. So maybe we can do something with that if you want.
Yeah.
Something very surreal, and it's simple and cheaper. So it's good to it's easy to do.
That's good.
So I hope you have a nice time in this conversation. And you are invited to join us in our lives to talk about films wherever you want. And come to Argentina, come to Latin America. Hablas español, ahora sí, hablemos español, no me rompa.
Sí, hasta la próxima vez. And muchas gracias para ese converso, y we'll see each other next time. But yeah, let's continue the conversation. I would love to pick your brain about some locations in Argentina, and I think that's a good way for me to start. I like to yo quiero empezar con los visuales, y entonces
dale, te pongo en contacto con ellos, son muy buena gente, muy creativos y están haciendo cosas increíbles, y a muchos les va a gustar lo que haces. Así que perfecto. Bueno, un placer y gente, nos vemos la próxima. Chao, chao.
Mucho gusto a todos, gracias. Bye.